It is September 5th, 2024, and Israel continues to carry out yet another day of raids targeting the Palestinian people in the West Bank. That's as we continue to have the conversation of, is there going to be a ceasefire agreement? Is there going to be some sort of a hostage deal? Is Netanyahu going to bow to the pressure that he's seeing within Israel? And what is Iran going to do in retaliation for the killing of Hamas political chief Ismail Haniyeh? And is that retaliation just about military means, or is it multifaceted? Because as we're seeing, when you look at Israel, they are in a constant state of fear right now. They're also in a constant state of unrest due to Netanyahu and his government and their refusal to even fight for the hostages with the deal that has been on the table for months now. But on top of that, tourism is down. Israel's economy is being harmed. If you want to talk about retaliation against Israel for its crimes, there are a number of different ways in which it is playing out that go beyond just the ability of Iran to carry out strikes on its end. But could that still happen? Well, we got into all of the latest with a special guest earlier, so let's take a listen to that conversation now. Joining me now to discuss is Ehsan Safarnejad, an Iran-based journalist and geopolitical analyst. Ehsan, thanks so much for taking the time to join me again.
Hi, thank you for inviting me on your show.
Now, I want to get your take on the current situation that we're in right now, because we've been in this waiting period for a number of weeks, right? Waiting to see kind of how Iran will respond, how it will retaliate against Israel for the assassination of Palestinian diplomat and Hamas political chief Ismail Haniyeh. While at the same time, when you watch what's happening in Israel right now, there is a lot of unrest. There are protests in the streets. You have Netanyahu kind of trying to balance between maybe acting like ceasefire talks are going to continue while knowing, at least from everything we've seen, that he is not going to agree to a ceasefire deal. So, how do you view the current climate in the region right now?
Well, we first have to understand why it has taken Iran so long to respond. And it is paramount for us to understand the environment in which Iran has decided to postpone, please take note of the term, postpone rather than cancel its retaliatory strike on Israel. And please do bear patience with me, as it might seem irrelevant, the things that I'm about to say, but I'll promise that it will all factor in to the answer to this question. So we have this ceremony. It's called the March of Arbain, in which Shias from different countries in the region make pilgrimage to Iraq, to the city of Karbala, and visit the mausoleum of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein is the icon of the axis of resistance. His sacrifice has has become the foundation of the ideology behind the axis of resistance. So based on what I just said, the group of people who make that pilgrimage are the most likely to go and enlist in an army or join an insurgent group in a possible full-on war between Iran and Israel or United States. Based on the stats given by the Office of Caretakers of Imam Hussein's mausoleum, 21 million people visited the mausoleum of Imam Hussein. So just to give you a perspective as to how significant this is, the entire population of the city of Karbala is roughly around 700,000 people, based on the survey that was carried out in 2014. Right, so suddenly the population blows up from 700,000 to a couple of million people, even more than that, at a particular time. The entire ceremony takes roughly about 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Uh, so this is the period of time that we were waiting uh, for the Iranian response. Now, let's have a thought exercise. Let's imagine that Iran would carry out its retaliatory strike within that time frame. And please take note of this video footage that came out of Israel. There is this distinguished rabbi who is talking about how the Israeli regime should blow up the Al-Aqsa compound and then blame it on a malfunctioned Iranian missile. What stops them from doing the same thing in Iraq? And blame it on a malfunctioned Iranian drone, because the drones in Iran are dime a dozen, in Iraq are dime a dozen. And because of the density of the population, which I explained to you, even if you blow up a fireworks within that population, that dense population, you're bound to hit like 100 people and kill 100 people would be killed and injured. So this is a very tricky situation, and you might find yourself staring at a civil war situation in Iraq. So Iran, in order to prevent that from happening, basically decided to wait. And the rationale behind it was very simple. First of all, there is no Iranian retaliation. So any attack on those pilgrims would be considered as an act by either ISIS or Israel in order to carry out a sabotage within Iraq. Or Israel, as they were threatening, would decide to carry out a so-called preemptive strike, which then Iran would use as a justification to carry out even a harsher response on Israel. Both of these things would have been considered as a sort of win for Iran. Obviously, this strategy worked, and there was no civil war in Iraq. That scenario was prevented. And in fact, they actually tried to cause unrest and a civil war within Iraq, but due to the vigilance of the Iraqi security officials and their Iranian counterparts, fortunately, these things were folded. So what I'm about to say, what I'm trying to say is that everything is going according to the plan. Iran didn't plan to respond within this very sensitive time frame. The Iranian response will surely come. All the rumors that are circulating around on social media that Iran has decided to cancel its retaliatory strike are completely nonsense. The commander-in-chief, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, has stated, he has this speech that he gave, and in which he basically says, if our retreats are not of the tactical nature and of the strategic nature, then it will cause major defeat for us, right? So based on that statement, I would say that the Iranian establishment and the Iranian armed forces are still very much keen on carrying out the retaliatory strike for the assassination of Mr. Ismail Haniyeh, Hamas leader in Tehran.
And I appreciate the explanation there, because I think that a lot of times, and this is especially true in the West, right? When you have the West looking at the region, they're not really taking everything into account. They're just looking at Iran versus Israel and not even thinking about, like you were saying, what's happening in Iraq and what is Iran taking into account, when it is looking at all of these different parts here. Now, what has been notable in the last little over a week now is that you had this back and forth between Israel and Hezbollah, and then you had Israel turn to the West Bank, and it has since carried out days of raids in the West Bank, killing Palestinians there. When it comes to the way that Iran is looking at Israel's actions, right? The killing never stops. It just kind of seems to be who they're targeting or which area they're targeting at the moment. How do you think that Iran sees Israel and the killings it's carrying out now against the Palestinians in the West Bank, in addition to the ongoing killing of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip?
Iran never rules out diplomatic approaches in order to reach ceasefire or putting an end to war. But I think based on the history and what we have seen either in Ukraine, with Minsk Accord and the statements of the very controversial, I must say, statements from former German Chancellor Angela Merkel that said they were never serious about the peace talks with Russia, and the kind of history that we in Iran have with United States and the European Union, either in the form of JCPOA, which is known as Iran deal in the mainstream media, about our nuclear program, or even the accords and agreements that we had prior to this episode of diplomatic negotiation between Iran and the West, either in the form of the Algiers Accords, in form of the Tehran Declaration. So we don't really have the best experience dealing with the West. The West says something and then behaves in a completely different way. And all this talk about the ceasefire and some sort of agreements being reached, Iran is not going to sabotage those efforts. Ultimately, it comes down to the Palestinians themselves, despite the fact that the Western outlets like to refer to these different groups within the region, like Hezbollah, Hamas. They call them as Iranian proxies. I'm here to say that they are completely, they have full autonomy over the choices that they make in order to carry out their strategies, the kind of approach that they're going to adopt in order to deal with their enemies. But in Iran, we don't have the best experience when dealing with the NATO countries. As such, I think Iran is betting most of its resources on a potential military solution to the conflict that we are seeing between, I mean, I can't really even call it a conflict because there is this senseless genocide against unarmed civilians. So it's very hard to refer to it as a conflict. But I think that in Iran, the way that the Iranian generals look at it is through a goggle of military approach and a military solution to the entire debacle and the entire genocide that we are seeing in Gaza. For us, this wasn't really out of character. We don't really perceive it as out of character for the Israelis to then lash out on the West Bank, which has nothing to do with Hamas. It doesn't have Hamas in it. The West Bank is controlled by the Palestinian organization that is governed basically by Mahmoud Abbas. So they didn't have any reason to do that. But I mean, they have the Lahia doctrine, as I mentioned the previous time that I was on your show. This is the doctrine that says in order to create a deterrence, Israel should carry out attacks against civilian targets, civilian infrastructure, in order to pose deterrence against this enemy. So this is how we view it. In Iran, I would say that the Quds Force commander is in constant communication with his colleagues in Hezbollah, in Hamas, and other resistance groups within the axis of resistance to find how they can manage the situation in a way that they both respond to the Israeli aggression, but also prevent the current conflict from, sort of expanding and affecting the lives of, for example, the Lebanese, as it is the concern that the conflict would then pour out to different countries within the region and degrade the situation under which the Lebanese, for example, the Syrians are living under.
Yeah, and I appreciate that explanation too, because I know that, when it comes to the region, this is something that Iran is taking into account. It's also taking into account the countless civilians who would be impacted by any possible scenario. And one of the things that we've witnessed in recent weeks has been the US military ramp up its presence in the region in support of Israel. And they claim that, oh, we're just helping Israel to quote unquote defend itself, right? Israel's carrying out all of these different attacks and assassinations. And the claim coming from the US is, oh, we have to help with their defenses on their end. But what is the message that that is sending to a country like Iran that is in this position dealing with this regional conflict, and yet the US is so involved at every possible point, even with its military literally there, but also with it continuing to arm Israel and continuing to keep sanctions on Iran and continuing to target Iran in all of the various direct and indirect ways that it is currently?
Well, there are a few things that we uh, think about when we are taking into consideration United States and its role, the statements of its officials about the ongoing conflicts around the world. One of the things that I think is general understanding within the Iranian population is that uh, United States has its hand in so many different conflicts that it becomes really hard to justify its actions as a benevolent and a force for good kind of actor within not just the region, but across the globe as well. Uh, I mean, this is what I say. I oftentimes draw this analogy that, for example, if a person has a friend, and if this hypothetical friend gets into a fight the first time, well, obviously, uh, people get sad, say, well, I wish that I was there to back you up. But then it happens second time, third time, fourth time. United States has been in so many different conflicts that people who are trying to make that mental gymnastic kind of argument in order to justify United States presence or involvement in yet another war anywhere on the planet have a really hard time of doing so. I mean, either the explanation is everybody in the world is crazy, and the Iranians, the people in Middle East, they're religious extremists. The Russians and Chinese people and their government are lunatics in their own regards with regard to authoritarian regimes that they want to pursue the things that are happening in Brazil and South America, and how suddenly, because there is this discovery of lithium resources in Latin America, then there is this very strong urge within the American political brass that Latin America really desperately needs democracy and United States intervention. So, I mean, this is the way that the Iranians view it. Uh, at the face value, this might sound terrifying, United States involvement in the region, but I can say this for certain, as a matter of certainty, that despite the fact that in Iran there is zero incentive to expand the war or to create a new front against the United States, but if United States chooses to get involved between Iran and Israel and obstruct Iran's right to take a retaliatory strike against Israel, which is granted to any sovereign country whose sovereignty has been violated by another actor, to have a chance of taking a retaliatory strike. If United States decides to interfere and prevent Iran from pursuing this right under the international law, in Iran, the armed forces are ready in order to take necessary actions against United States and the troop that they have present in the region. And due to the fact that the US military has stretched too far and too thin, they don't have the enough air defense systems in order to protect every single basement, apologies, not basement, base that they have within the region. And as a reason, as a reason for that, we know that they're completely vulnerable to, an attack by, Iran or other parties within the region. So I think that there is, apart from the fact that Iran doesn't want to start a war, but is also ready in order to respond to any, action by United States. I think that there is also this ease of mind inside the Iran political class that they still consider United States and its politicians as a semi-rational actors, that they understand that they have far too much to lose to gamble everything on Israel and the genocide that it is carrying out within the region. So I don't think that these things would really prevent Iran from, carrying out what it deems to be the necessary action in order to respond to, the entire thing that is going on in Gaza and also West Bank, and the potential of a new front in Lebanon. I would say that in a scenario where Lebanon is invaded, there's a very high possibility and probability of seeing more advanced Iranian weapons being deployed in the region by Hezbollah. So there is that possibility, and I think that the political class inside the United States understand this well.
Yeah, and I think that is a very important point, especially going back to the fact that, the United States may be one country that has its borders, well, around itself, but when it has set up military bases all around the world, it's making itself vulnerable to attacks all around the world, and then it's going and picking more and more conflicts. I mean, as an American watching my government doing this, I'm going, this is not smart, right? Why are you doing this? Why are you continuing to put the US in this position? And I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today to share your perspective from your part of the world, especially when it comes to kind of the bigger picture here. I know that, there's a lot of different things that could happen, and we'll continue to keep an eye on them to see what does end up happening. Ehsan Safarnejad, an Iran-based journalist and geopolitical analyst, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thank you for inviting me.
If anything in this video resonated with you, be sure to like it, share it with your friends, leave a comment. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to keep up with all of my work, make sure that you're subscribed to my page on Substack. That's rachelblevins.substack.com. If you want to support my work, you can also check out my page on Patreon. That's patreon.com/rachelblevins. That's where you can sign up as a monthly paid subscriber and join the community there. As always, thank you all so much for all of your support, and I'll see you next time.